Doing all right, hanging in there. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Can you give me an overview of the barbering program?
Sure. Barbering program is a 2-year program now, and we cover every aspect of the barbering industry, from facial shaving to hair design, facial hair design, skincare, coloring, highlighting, special effects techniques, men's manicuring, business applications, chemistry of barbering, electricity dealing with barbering, all the different tools and equipments, your infection control certifications. There's a lot of information that we cover in the 2 years.
Yeah, you don't mess around. It's everything you need to know.
Absolutely.
So the one that we're going to mention hours a lot. And for anyone that doesn't know about the hours process, could you give them a little insight into that?
Absolutely. In order to sit for your master barber's license exam, you have to complete a specific number of hours in certain areas. For example, clipper cutting has 150 hours. Infection control has 20 hours. The reason they have specific hours is because you have to complete certain specifications in those areas in order to get all the requirements covered that they want you to have covered to be able to sit for the state board exam. For the barbering program, you need 500 hours through Erie Wimbosi's, and they're pretty easy to acquire in the 2 years. It's not difficult at all. As long as you have good attendance and you're motivated and you do well, you try hard, you'll have no problem achieving the 500 hours that are required to sit for the state board exam.
Yeah, and the attendance is huge because you only earn hours by being at school. So keep that
Exactly.
That's how you earn those hours, is through your attendance.
Yeah, the one thing too, kids don't realize, I shouldn't say kids, I should say young adults, don't realize is the fact that when you miss one class at Harkness, it's like missing 3 of your classes at homeschool. These are 2 hours and 15 minutes long. But if you ask any one of my students who's in my class, half the time I'm yelling at them to clean up and get out of here because the bell is wrong and they're going to miss their bus. And I don't want them to sit there with me for the afternoon until the afternoon program comes in.
Or wait for a ride.
Yeah, or wait for a ride. John loves that. but the time goes by so fast because we stay busy, and I try to keep everything upbeat and exciting and interesting. There's days where you're going to be like, oh, I can't stand doing this kind of work. But then there's going to be other days that you don't want to clean up when I tell you, okay, you got 10 minutes to clean up before the bell rings. And as a matter of fact, today I had students in the classroom and I'm like, guys, clean up, 15 minutes, bell's going to ring.
We gotta go.
Then 10 minutes, clean up. And then 5 minutes, clean up. Then the bell's ringing and I'm going, guys, you have to clean up now. So, that's the way it goes though. We have a good time in there.
Well, I've been I've been doing these for 2 weeks now, and it keeps coming up that we're kind of like the opposite of homeschool, where you don't sit in a desk necessarily. You don't sit and just listen to someone talk. You're up, you're moving, you get to apply what you're learning is hands-on. It's kind of like anti-high school in a way.
I got rid of the desks in my room.
Did you really?
Yes.
See, there we go. You have the option to sit at a desk.
No, you don't have that option anymore.
Yep.
No, we got rid of them. Yeah. Well, we have a few tables for when we do group projects, when I work together as a group, but for the most part, I got rid of the desks.
Yeah. Because why not?
Well, the thing is, we do most of the program is hands-on. This year is an exception to what the program usually runs, because I don't usually give out homework. Everything that we do in class, and really the only homework that I expect them to do is to try their techniques on friends and family at home, cut hair and do some of the things that they've learned. They get to take their kids home. When they purchase their kits, they can take those kids home. They can use clippers, they can cut their brother's hair. I can't tell you how many of my students continuously are sending me videos of, hey, Miss Art, look at this haircut. You know, it's the first time I've done this. And I was like, it's awesome. You know, I always give them feedback on what they can do to correct it. And then, you know, when we're in session, like they bring their friends in, or if they have friends in other programs at Harkness, they'll come in. Sometimes teachers will come in and sit. Um, you know, we try to have fun in there, you know, and that's the one thing is I remember what it was like when I was in high school and I hated it, but
Yeah.
I was a Harkness graduate. And I remember what it was like when I was at Harkness, and that I try to make sure that it's just as fun for my students now.
I love that. I've also been finding out so many of our teachers are alumni. I had no
Yeah.
idea. Like,
Yeah.
no idea. Okay, so you know, when you're at homeschool, a project that gets assigned might be like a book report or a research paper. What does a project in Miss R's barbering class look like?
Well, we shave balloons with straight razors, and if they pop, you get covered in shaving cream. We learn how to use the sinks real fast, making sure that we hold the hose, because if you don't, you end up mopping the floor.
Yep.
Um, we cut hair on mannequins. We get to work with each other.
Mhm.
You go out into the barber shops, you find a barber shop or a barber that you can associate with, and you can work out in the barber shop for 30 hours on your work-based learning. Other project that we work on is we do build your own shop, where they go out and actually research the demographics of an area that they want to build a shop in, and they get the property, and we go ahead and get all the information on how to open their own barber shop.
Mhm. I love that because it adds the business aspect because you know, there's so many avenues you can go in this industry. You can work for someone, you can work for yourself, all the different layers of what you can do, or you can rent a space, but technically be your own boss.
Yeah,
It's really good to have a
independent
business
contractors.
background. Yeah, it's great to have a business
Yeah,
background. I know you own your own shops, so you're
yeah.
learning from the best.
Well, that's it. You know, I mean, I've explored every avenue that we have. Like I've been a platform artist for the Major League Barbers. I've done professional education for barbers in the shops.
Hmm.
I'm a state examiner. I'm also a licensed cosmetologist. So, and I've done retail end of it too. You know, I used to go around and work with retail companies and Gentlemen's Republic and stuff like that
Yeah.
to get their products out there. So I try to bring all of my knowledge that I have acquired over the years and bring it into the students that are coming into my program now.
Yeah, super well-rounded for the entire barbering world, which is great. You need to be that. Um,
Absolutely.
so speaking of going into barber shops, have you ever like gone into shops and seen your alumni? Can you tell me a little bit about your successful graduates?
I have a lot of successful graduates actually. One of them actually does hair for, well, she's in Florida right now, and she's been working on doing hair for a rap artist who is creating some rap video. I mean, I don't listen to rap music, but you know, it was pretty impressive. She sent me some of the video links, and I was like, wow, that looks really awesome, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's good for her. And I have another former student that is actually working in, well, New York City during Fashion Week, to model hair for men. I have a lot of barber students that own shops now. I have, it's in Hamburg, you have Joel X Shop, Buffalo Barber Surgeons. I
Hmm.
have PJ's over in Lackawanna. We have um, Justin Pizzino. He has three of my graduates over there. He just opened up a shop on Niagara Falls Boulevard.
Nice.
And oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on the spot. Why does my brain always go blank?
Because it's the end of the week. Don't worry about it.
I have a lot of my former students. Actually, my advisory committee is all made up of my former students except for two.
Get out of here. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah,
They're just paying it forward. I love that.
absolutely.
So what does the job market look like? Obviously, we can talk about how COVID's hit the industry pretty hard, but you know, in an ideal world, what's it look like?
Even though COVID has hit the industry pretty hard, it's it's kind of a catch 22 because of the fact that a barber is limited to how many people he can take in a day.
Hmm.
That he can't service all of the clients coming to his shop now. I am getting phone calls from barbers left and right now, looking for people. They need more barbers in their shops to take care of the clientele. They don't have enough barbers in there to service the clientele that they have.
Hmm.
So I have yet to have a student that finished the program, got their license, not find a job.
There you go. Those are pretty good odds.
Yeah.
So if a student doesn't want to necessarily go right into the workforce or solely into the workforce, what's the articulations that you have with colleges and programs?
We have articulation agreements with Bryan and Stratton for small business management, and we also have the articulation agreement with workforce development. Um, there's a couple other colleges that I would like to reach out to, so I'm hoping that as my program grows, I can expand those articulation agreements. Nice thing is Bryan and Stratton is a small college and it's more personable. One of the professors that teaches there actually is a licensed cosmetologist and she knows the industry. So they make it kind of specific for appearance enhancement business.
Hmm. Which is good. I mean, we I'm a cosmetologist. We're in a weird industry where the world is really your oyster. There's not a lot of parameters you have to fit into other than the safety stuff. So knowing how to manage yourself or manage your team is really important.
Well, the nice thing is too is our industry is recession proof.
Hmm.
I mean, as we've learned, what was the one major thing that was on the news constantly through this whole pandemic was to be able to get their haircut. You
Yep.
know, shops are fighting to get open because people are wanting to get their haircut. I
Yep.
mean, you had political figures even go into closed shops to get their haircut when they weren't supposed to. It's just it's a necessity. So it's something that's always going to be in demand.
Yes, absolutely.
Best part is the amount of money you can make is endless.
Hmm.
You are the um uh basically captain of your own ship because you can determine how much money you want to make by how many clients you do in a day. If you want to make $100 a day, and you charge $20 a client, that's five clients and done for the day. I mean, the average barber can make anywhere between $200 and $300 in a day.
In a day.
In a day.
Hmm. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not like a casual industry. It's very quick. You're in
Yep.
demand, but you're
Mhm.
also in control, which is really nice.
Absolutely. You get to make your schedule. Exactly. I mean, that was the whole reason I actually got into it was back in my day when I was going to college. I got into it so that I could create my own schedule and work it around my college schedule. But I found out how much money I was making in industry. I mean, I've got my degrees, obviously, but
Hmm.
at the time, I stayed in industry for a long time because, there was at one point when I had my day spa down in Naples, Florida, I was clearing over 100 grand a week or 100 grand a year.
Yep, of course. I mean, you're busy. Um,
Absolutely.
One thing we didn't really talk about last week when we chatted was the fact that you are a female barber, and
Right.
that's kind of coming to be a new norm. Whereas I think
Yeah.
before it was normal for women to be cosmetologists and men became barbers, and now we're very blurred. So, do you get a
Right.
lot of female students in your class?
I do now. It's crazy. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. They add a whole new dynamic to the whole barbering industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny too because there's certain topics I teach in class where the guys in the class will be like, "Well, I only want her to do it," or "I only, they only want a specific gender to do it because they feel uncomfortable." But then once they get comfortable with each other, it's just like nothing. It's just a matter of doing the service and being over it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of ironic because one of my former students was one of the very first female barbers at Burns Barbershop over in
Nice.
yeah. So,
Very nice.
yeah, so that was really, really cool because one, she stepped up to the plate and she was one of my adult students. And I was super proud of her because, Burns had a reputation for not accepting any female barbers whatsoever in their shop. It was strictly men. And
Mhm.
was the first female barber to ever be accepted to work there.
I love that. I mean, that's crazy impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is hard to break in. It
it
is it
is.
can be hard to break in
Oh,
depending on.
trust me, I still get the looks if I walk into a shop that they don't know me. If it's an old school barber, they're like, "What are you doing here?" And
Mhm.
I tell them,
What are you selling? Yeah.
"I'm here for so and so student that's doing their work based learning."
Yep.
Oh.
You're right. Exactly. Well, and that kind of brings up like the trends, right? So we have women rocking super short clippered hair now, which
Mhm.
maybe 10, 15 years ago was not really popular, but
No,
now it's everywhere, and we see like
edgy.
the designs and stuff. It's very edgy. So, like, what kind of trends do you get to explore in your class that are coming up?
Everything. We do undercutting, we do hair design, um a lot of mohawks, we do burst fades, we do um a lot of taper cuts, bald fades. We do long hair, short hair.
Hmm.
Now that it's a 2-year program, we're also getting into texturizing techniques and special effects coloring, which is
Hmm.
really cool because when I was in Chicago, not this past year because of COVID, but the year before, I was in Chicago with a bunch of barbers, and I was at one of the barbering competitions there with the Major League Barbers. And one of the things that they're really getting into now is a lot of special effects coloring
Hmm.
tips on the hair, or green tips in the hair, stuff like that, or they're coloring the whole hair itself, blonde on the top, dark on the side stuff. And it was really cool because I got to see a lot of things that are becoming popular outside of New York State, and I'm able to incorporate a lot of that stuff into my program.
Yeah. Have you ever had a student do something like super crazy to their own hair? Like sticks out in your brain? I mean, the obvious answer is yes, but any
Obviously.
that stick out in your brain that is memorable?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. They never cease to amaze me. There's always one in the group that just does something completely out of the ordinary.
Right.
I've had a student in the past um, dye his whole entire head, and his hair was almost black, and he went like pale blonde, and
Whoa.
yeah, it
Which
was
is impressive
shocking.
in itself to go that far.
Exactly, because you can't get that many levels normally. Um,
Right.
and then he wore it very spiky. It was cool. I had another student one time that did a really nice burst fade. He wore a burst fade, and his hair was actually colored gray. So it looked
Ooh.
cool, the faded part up into the gray. It was super
Yeah.
awesome.
Also very hard color to achieve.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We work
Um,
on it though.
I love that. I love that. I love that there's more. I love that barbering and cosmetology are taking like the assumed norms about what they do and kind of starting to weave a little bit. Just a little.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um so what kinds of in a normal year, like an ideal standard no COVID year, what kind of like field trips and like guest speakers and stuff do you get to do?
Well, usually Jacqueline Sachs of Cut and Lather. She's another female barber. Janelle Ludlow, uh, Off the Beaten Path. And then I have Oral Roberts from Coven Mill.
Hmm.
Um, these are all barbers that own their own businesses. And they like to come in and they talk to students. They are the first ones that call me every single time, too, looking for students to come in and do internships with them, or they look to hire students, stuff like that. Some of the other things that we do is the Barber Expo, which is a lot of fun. They have the Major League Barber Show, usually downtown in May, and seniors can attend that. Not the juniors so much, but that's something to look forward to in the senior year.
Hmm.
I had one student in the past that actually placed in the Major League Barber Show competition here in Buffalo. She took
Nice.
third place. youngest contestant ever to place in a barbering competition.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, work-based learning activities and
mhm.
stuff like that.
So we briefly mentioned safety, but we should probably talk about safety measures that go into your class because we are dealing with chemicals and sharp implements, right? So
Right.
what types of safety stuff do you do in your class?
Well, the students get to know the nurse really well.
Yep.
Um, she always she always comes down and talks to them, and even though I go over how to properly handle shears, there's always a couple in the group that cut past the second knuckle and end up having to go down and visit Miss Thuman and get the band-aid.
Hmm.
But we do gloves. We talk about wearing gloves, protecting your clothing, protecting your eyes. um, right now, because of COVID, we have to wear goggles when we work on each other, masks. And then when you work on a live client, you have to wear gloves. But in the normal business area, it's pretty much an apron. We're strong into disinfecting and cleaning. It's always been that way in the barbering industry, because we're working with straight razors and clippers, and we're cutting extremely close to the skin. So we're basically, when we cut, sometimes we're taking that very top layer of skin off, leaving the skin vulnerable. So one thing that we do is we use astringent to make sure that the skin is tightened up and closed, that the pores are closed, so that way no infection can take place. Um, and then, of course, constantly sanitizing and cleaning our implements. We go through that whole with the ship shape and the barbicide and the spray disinfectant and the lubricant to make sure that the screw is at the pivot point of your shears is lubricated properly so that it doesn't develop rust and so forth. So there's a lot of aspects into infection control. And we don't just talk about the chemical aspect, we also talk about the bacterial and the viral aspects of it as well. We learn the different bacteria that can cause diseases and disorders, and we also learn about the different viruses that are problems. We learn how to spot them in the shop if a client has them, so that we're able to detect them and prevent a student or a barber from becoming infected with something that the client has.
Yeah, and protecting yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. What is so we have uniforms, right? Well, do you have uniforms in your class? Basically, my question is, what do students need to bring with them once they've enrolled in your class?
Basically, all I require my students is they wear black pants and closed-toed, closed-heeled shoes. They can be sneakers of any kind, but they have to be made of vinyl or leather. And we issue them the barbering jacket, so it covers over their shirt.
Mm-hmm. And what about their kits?
The kits they can purchase in class. It's $75, and but all the stuff that's in the kit actually comes to almost $200. So they're yeah, the clippers alone are $150.
Mm-hmm. So it's worth it to get it while you're in school. And that they
Oh,
can go on
absolutely.
their state board, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Perfect.
absolutely.
We're not done, but we're kind of winding down. So I just want to remind anyone, if you have questions, go ahead, type them into the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them for you. Um, so I have a question that I didn't have last week that I'd like to ask you. What do you wish students knew before coming to your class? Or like, what's a common misconception about your class from students?
That it's easy.
Fair
They think anybody can cut hair. I
enough.
the first time they try.
Yeah.
The look of shock on their face is a lot of fun.
Mhm.
The one thing that I want them to understand is that cutting hair isn't easy. It's not just about taking a clipper, putting on a guard, and running that clipper over the head. You got to hold that clipper at a certain angle. You got to switch between guards. You got to adjust the blade in order to get the look that you're looking for. In order to fade somebody up, you don't just put a guard on it and cut the hair. You have to alternate, and then, of course, different types of cutting in order to blend. You do shear over comb, clipper over comb. We clean up bald fades with a foil razor or a straight razor. And they need to learn to use these implements. And it's not about, like I said, just taking a clipper and putting a guard on it and shaving somebody's head. It's about angles, proper hand position, shear position, hair angles. So there's a lot of math and science in barbering.
Right. It's totally, and this is another thing that keeps coming up is that it's applied math to science. So it's so
Yeah,
different than trying to do math on a piece of paper. Like you get to
I love
see it.
it. I love it when my students and I'm telling them how to do something, and then they have Mrs. Mintz come in. She's our math teacher, and Mrs. Mintz will talk to them about algebra, and they're like, "Oh, I hate algebra. I can't do algebra." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're doing it right now."
All day. All
Yeah,
day.
all day long.
Yep.
Or geometry. They hate geometry, with angles and stuff like that. Or physics, even. They don't even realize that they're doing physics when we're talking about electricity.
Yep.
So
All
it's
day.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So I guess my kind of last question, if you will, is
Yeah.
what would your recommendation be to a student who wants to be a barber, who's taking your class and they're about to graduate? What would you tell them to do to be able to stand out? Because it's a competitive field. So
It
what's
is a
going to
very
set them
competitive
apart?
field. The one thing that I have noticed that students of mine that have become very successful in the industry have no fear. They're willing to work hard and they're willing to try anything. It's not like, oh, I don't want to do that haircut. They're the first ones to raise their hand and say, I want to try this haircut. Even though they don't know what they're doing, they're willing to try. And that's those are the ones that are extremely successful in this business, is the ones that are motivated. They are ambitious and they take the initiative to just go ahead and do stuff on their own, without having to be asked or told.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's like you got to want it.
Gotta want it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like I tell them all the time. I says, you can make as much money as you want to make, but you are the one that can do that. And it's not always about how great of a hair cutter you are or how great of a fader you are. A lot of it is personality. People will come to you if you have a really great personality and you're fun to be around, they'll come to you and get their haircut.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in there and you're complaining and you're miserable all the time, and you could be the best hair cutter in the world and you will have a lousy clientele.
Yeah.
You'll have a couple because they'll want nobody but the best, but the rest of the people want to come to somebody that they can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a bedside manner that comes to it because, I mean, in that industry, you're letting someone into your personal space, like
Oh,
up
absolutely.
someone, and
Mhm.
that's kind of a high responsibility when you think about it.
Mhm.
Mhm. But
Like I said, even in the classroom, I mean, my students, they stay in touch with me. I have students right now that actually one the other day that just messaged me, a student of mine 2 years ago, and he is now a barber in the military. He's in the Marines. So yeah, he was sending me pictures, and he was like, Miss R, look at these high and tights I've done. And they still think, and they send me pictures even years later. So
yeah,
we
I didn't
have
even think
fun.
about that as an avenue.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's what he's doing. He's a barber in the military. He does. I mean, they cut their hair. I guess all the new people that come into the military get haircuts. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what he's doing now.
Yeah. Well, this has been lovely. It's our 30 minutes are up, if you can believe
Okay,
it. But
that went by fast.
right, I just want to say to anyone who's interested in barbering, there is only one barbering class taught by Miss R, and it is at Harkness. But if you're from Hamburg or like California, you can your school will provide transportation to Harkness for you.
Absolutely.
But just know that there is limited space since there's only one junior class. Let your guidance counselor know or whoever is responsible for making your school schedule that you'd like to commit 2 years, which is very exciting, 2 years, junior and senior year, to your barbering class and get on that list as soon as possible because it's not a big room.
Right. We only have room for 16 students. So the first 16 that enroll will get in there.
Yep. First come, first serve, no application, no interview process. So just make sure if it's truly what you want to do, that you get on that list. Okay. Other than
Thank
that,
you.
thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.